Welcome to the first ever post-RAW podcast. My name is Clyde Robbins. I'll say that in a normal voice. My name is Clyde Robbins. I just kind of like saying Clyde Robbins. For no particular reason, just for fun, I guess. But I'd like to get straight to the point. This podcast is about great things. It's about professional wrestling. It's about the world of pro wrestling. It's about me, Clyde Robbins, recapping the events of last night's Raw. I'm going to post new podcasts/videos every Tuesday, the day after Raw. I might talk about some SmackDown main event stuff, pay-per-view stuff, whatnot, but I'll kind of wrap it all up and I'll talk about whatever interests me on that Tuesday. But, right now, what's pertinent to what I want to talk about is, last night's Monday Night Raw. For the first time in a long time, it was actually a pretty good broadcast. And ever since July when they moved over to 3 hours, I was like, what the fuck is this shit? I don't want to watch this. This is too long. I have to DVR it. I have to watch it on Hulu. I have to watch segments on WWE.com because I don't want to watch the full broadcast. It bores me, and a lot of the segments I'm like, damn. But then I'm like watching it, and I really appreciate the fact that ever since it went to 3 hours, a lot of the undercard, mid-card guys have a little bit more time to wrestle. And since this is professional wrestling, I really do appreciate when wrestlers are allowed to wrestle. Back when Raw was 2 hours, matches would be 1 to 2 minutes, 3 to 5 at max. The main event segment would be 8, and that'd be it. Pretty much, what we're used to watching on SmackDown nowadays. 7 to 8 minute matches. But the thing is, now that Raw is 3 hours, you got a lot of matches, between Damian Sandow and Sheamus, for instance, that are allowed, 11 minutes, 12 minutes. You got the Daniel Bryan versus Chris Jericho matches on last week's Monday Night Raw that just stole the show. So, I'm grateful for 3 hour Raws, but I'll tell you, I gotta be honest, I don't watch it live. I can't watch it live. I have to watch it on my DVR, and, I got that fast forward button really handy. Monday Night Raw last night was strong. I was very happy with it, and the point of this show is that I'm just going to run down the entire show and talk about it. Some of you may find it boring, hopefully not, because I'm going to do it every Tuesday, no matter how many people watch it. I don't care. Let's start off with the first segment of the show, and that was CM Punk coming out, voicing his concerns, his frustrations, complaining about certain elements of last night's match that he had with The Rock, with the referees coming out, bumping 1, bumping 2, before, he had The Rock down for an 18 count. And I have to say, even if I wasn't biased completely because I'm a huge CM Punk fan, I gotta say, he's right. He did beat The Rock for 18 seconds. Ever since The Rock has come back, all of his matches, all 2 of them, have been overbooked. Why do they need to be so overbooked? Why can't we have a clean finish without 2 refs, Paul Heyman bumping, everybody bumping, getting distracted, and then The Rock coming out with a rock bottom? Now, I do appreciate the fact that the match was, booked very well to keep CM Punk as strong as he could look for his second pay-per-view loss in a row. But why 2 ref bumps? Why not just Heyman distracting? Well, you could have still had CM Punk kicking out of the rock bottom, kicking out of the people's elbow, and then going for Heyman. That would have been less booked than what they ended up doing. So I was kind of like, overbooked again, just like it was at the Royal Rumble with McMahon coming out and restarting the match. I had a big beef with that because I was super pumped when The Rock lost to CM Punk. I thought, whoa, they really threw us for a swerve there. But then McMahon just came out, restarted the match, Rock wins, and it was more of the same last night. And I gotta say, I knew The Rock was gonna win, but a part of me just hoped that they were gonna go a different route. But it makes the most sense. Rock Cena made the most money last year. 1 million buys. Now, if you're a movie studio producer, you get a successful movie, You do pretty much the same movie a year later, it's going to do, the same amount of buys as the first one, if not even more. So, from a business standpoint, I understand why they're doing twice in a lifetime, as the marks like to say. But, the only thing that concerns me is where does CM Punk fit in? It's, rumored that he's going to be facing Taker, but we're, dangerously close to WrestleMania, and Taker still has not made one appearance. Taker was in Nashville. He had photos with some fans at the hockey game, but he never showed. Apparently he did have a meeting with Vince McMahon. He's probably, letting people know whether he can work Mania or not. I'm expecting him to show up. For sure. And, he's going to show up for a match. Even if he's like 82%, he's going to show up for a match. But there are a lot of people that are like, oh, okay, Taker 20-0, I think that's a good time to bow out. But I think he wants to make it to 25. I don't know if he has 5 years left in him, but we'll see. Anyway, Cena came out, interrupted CM Punk's segment, talking about blah, blah, blah. They just talked about a bunch of shit, but I'll just kind of go through it. Punk said pretty much Cena made the stupidest decision ever when he decided to face Punk on next week's Raw, with the winner going to face The Rock for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. And now, the thing that I am in fear of is that this is just another reason to bury CM Punk again. If he comes out next week, he just loses clean. That's it. John Cena is legit the better man, and he deserves to be in the spot against The Rock. But CM Punk's not going to win. There is no way for Punk to win. I would assume that, in this following week, if they can't decide whether Taker can do the match at, Mania 29, that CM Punk will somehow kind of slither his way, Viper style, into a triple threat match with the two. But I think the company wants to do Rock versus Cena too. And it's like, Die Hard. I compare Rock versus Cena with Die Hard 4, for instance, because Die Hard 4 wasn't a very good movie. It was a good movie, but it was an awful Die Hard movie. And then I saw Die Hard 5, A Good Day to Die Hard. I hate those names, by the way. Recently, this weekend, and it was awful. Like, it wasn't an awful movie. It just wasn't a very good Die Hard movie. And I was surprised because Justin Long was, pretty terrible in 4. And this guy had no chemistry. The guy who played McClane's son, nothing. Like, no chemistry, no charisma, no screen presence. And I feel that Die Hard 4 and 5 can be compared to Rock Cena 1 and 2. Rock Cena 1 wasn't very good. It was okay. It was, it didn't live up to the hype because we knew The Rock was, blown up. But then here's Rock Cena 2. Rock should be in a much better, shape, but it's deja vu. It's something we've already seen before, just like Punk referenced in the promo. But I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. Cena Punk 2... Cena and Punk next week on Raw to determine who's going to WrestleMania. I have a feeling that they're using this week-long buffer for Taker to decide whether he can work Punk at Mania, and if he can't, Triple Threat is the backup solution, which, for me, it doesn't work like that. I don't like three-way matches in a main event of WrestleMania. I can remember the last time that happened. It was Ray, Kurt Angle, Randy Orton at WrestleMania 21 or 22 or 23 or 24. I don't even remember. But I don't like main events to be triple threat matches. I mean, I didn't like Benoit, Triple H, Michaels. I mean, it was a terrific match. I just don't like the idea of having triple threat matches to be the main event of Mania. I want a traditional one-on-one. Hulk versus Warrior, Hulk versus Andre, Hulk versus Slater. Stuff like that. It just has kind of like a one-on-one feel to it. That's what I like in a main event. But my hopes is that Taker can go and, he can have the second marquee match on the show with Punk, and finally he could lose, because I don't see, he's 20-0 at WrestleMania Taker, and I doubt he can go for 5 more years to make it 25-0. And as much as a lot of people say Taker shouldn't lose, his streak should remain intact, I feel if anybody's going to end the streak, it should be a man of the caliber of CM Punk. And I'm not just stroking Punk's cock here. I'm saying he's the future of the company for at least, the next 5 to 10 years. Give him a run. Give him a run with the ball. He's been a 1-year champion. And I feel that beating The Undertaker would just elevate him to a level nobody has, had the privilege of working The Undertaker and beating him at WrestleMania. So I believe that is the right choice. If Taker can go, he should lose to CM Punk. Very first match here on Raw last night was Sin Cara and Mark Henry. Now, I'm not a big fan, and I'm not saying this because I'm Zeb Coulter or anything. I'm not a big fan of Mexican wrestlers, so I was really happy to see Mark Henry just destroy Cara. Looks like Cara and Mysterio isn't happening at Mania because, Ray's been off more than he's been on, so Sin Cara's useless. Glad Mark Henry took him out. But one thing I don't agree with, Mark Henry getting out of the ring when Great Khali confronted him. What the fuck was that? Mark Henry is, he should be built to be unstoppable. He shouldn't be built like the coward, running away, Big Show style. No. Mark Henry's Mark Henry. He should be inviting as many inductees as he can into the Hall of Fame. And Great Khali should have been no different. Like, what kind of pedestal is Khali on right now that he can't afford to, do a job for Mark? No. Mark Henry should have destroyed him along with Sin Cara and headed to the back, and he could have, I guess, danced like the Great Khali if he wanted to, but I'm saying, that's exactly what they should have done there. Moving on to match number 2, we have Antonio Cesaro and Miz in a no DQ match. Now, this was another one of those matches that I felt a little, off about at the Elimination Chamber. I do, understand why they did it, to do another feud, to keep the feud going between Cesaro and Miz. But I don't really feel that they have chemistry in the ring. They're not meshing. Miz is good on his own. Cesaro is great. But you put great and good together, and, it was quite mediocre, I have to say. Maybe it's because they didn't have enough time to tell a good story. But the whole, the DQ finish last night was fairly appalling. But on to the no DQ match. It was good, and it was to keep the feud going. It was a much better match than the match that they had at Elimination Chamber. And The Miz prevailed. And I guess I thought it was for the title, but I guess it wasn't, which makes even more sense because they're going to have another match perhaps on the pre-show before the Battle Royal at WrestleMania. In the third match of the night, it was Alberto Del Rio taking on Dolph Ziggler in a rematch from the fantastic match that they had on Main Event. And if anybody misses Main Event, very silly, because Main Event often has the best wrestling of the week. Some of the really good wrestling comes from NXT, but most of the wrestling comes from Main Event when they have about 15 to 16 minutes to tell a good story. And I believe Alberto Del Rio and Dolph Ziggler really did that on Main Event. They were fantastic. They had good chemistry. It was really, really, really good. Pay-per-view caliber. But on Raw, they didn't have as much time. But that spot with the backwards suplex off the top rope, it was fantastic. They're making Langston do stuff now. And I've seen Langston's work on NXT. And he's quite good. I just don't like his silly haircut. It kind of looks awkward. Not a big fan of that. But other than that, sure. I like Big E Langston. But every time I look at him, I'm just like, what happened to Ezekiel Jackson? I'm not saying that because I'm just kind of, putting him together with other black people or other black superstars in the world of professional wrestling. But I'm just saying, what can Biggie Langston do that Ezekiel couldn't? Ezekiel is getting kind of old, I guess. But at Elimination Chamber, he came out, destroyed Kofi. And on Raw, he destroyed Dolph Ziggler's opponent, Alberto Del Rio. So, big things for Langston. Could he be turning on Dolph Ziggler soon? I certainly hope so. Because I find Ziggler, for the better part of his career, he's been aligned with Vicky or AJ or Langston. Whereas I feel he's one of those types of people that can shine better if he was on his own. When he was with Vicky, I said that he should have been separated from Vicky because he is strong enough. He's got great mic skills. He's physical, hard-hitting, good matches, but with a little bit of finesse in his matches. Good stuff. He doesn't need Vicky to be the mouthpiece. He can be his own mouthpiece. Dead Man Down, Wade Barrett in like a millisecond of the trailer and then gets interrupted by Sheamus telling him that his segment's over. I had no idea that Sheamus had a part-time job as a, timekeeper. I didn't know he was friends with Billy Kidman. I didn't know he was a producer. I didn't know Sheamus had anything to do with segments and when they should end. Match number 4, we had Rosa Mendez, Pico, and Primo in a 6-man with the dancers Brodus Clay, Tensai, and Naomi. So, yeah, that was that. Not a whole lot to say about that. If you guys want to discuss about Tensai and Brodus Clay, I feel that there's a lot of controversy in terms of, how they use Tensai. But I say whatever TV time you can get, you maximize your minutes, according to JR. And Tensai is maximizing his minutes. Would you rather be, a poorly pushed monster that loses every week to Santino and Zack Ryder? Or would you rather be in a silly tag team, making a fool out of yourself and humiliating yourself, and actually winning? I'd go for the latter. Good for Tensai. I haven't seen his New Japan stuff. I don't know how good he is, but a lot of marks seem to say he was fantastic in New Japan, and they should be pushing him the way that he was pushed there. But the WWE isn't going to do that, So Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter, the racists. Speaking of racism, because I was kind of showing a little bit of racialness towards the, I said I didn't like Mexican wrestlers, but, I don't like them because they're Mexican. I just don't like, the lucha libre style of wrestling because I feel that it's overly choreographed. I don't believe any of their offense. I don't believe that anything that they're doing is trying to hurt the other person. And I realize, everything is choreographed and called in the ring and whatnot, but I believe most matches, I can suspend my disbelief, I should say, that, these two guys hate each other. They're really gonna try to hurt each other. But even if Sin Cara said he hated Rey Mysterio and they fought at WrestleMania, it would just be a lot of flips, Hurricane Ranas, head scissors, just shit that doesn't make sense. So, yeah, not a big Mexican wrestling fan. Love Mexicans. My favorite one right now is Alberto Del Rio. So he's doing a good job. I think his face turn has been well received for the most part. People cheering him at events, live events, Raw, SmackDown. But Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger, let's go to their State of the Union address. I think that Zeb Coulter is a great mouthpiece for Jack Swagger. A lot of people complaining about the racism and all that. I think this is great. Jack Swagger, needed something new to, I guess, propel him to the next level. And I think putting a mouthpiece like Zeb Coulter with Jack Swagger is going to get him to that next level. Sure, him and Alberto is in the main event, which means opening match if you're a world heavyweight champion. 3 years in a row now. It's going to open WrestleMania, and he's going to lose to Alberto because what a way to kick off the show. You got someone racist towards Mexicans, an underdog, blah, blah, blah. Alberto wins. Feel good moment to start the show. So I'm looking forward to the promos. I'm looking forward to the whole, border crossing jokes and, segments saying that, Mexicans are stealing jobs from Americans. It just reminds me of that episode of South Park. When the Americans go, they took our jobs. Same idea here, except it's going to be expanded and it's going to be a little bit broader. I'm looking forward to the match. Looking forward even more to the promos. I might be in the minority in this case because a lot of people just absolutely hate this real American patriot acting, and I don't know. I'm fine with it. On to Daniel Bryan and Jack Swagger. Outcome of this match wasn't really in question. Daniel Bryan was going to make Jack Swagger look strong. Daniel tapping out, I don't buy it. He's a submission machine. But other than that, I understood what Bryan's job was here for, no pun intended, jabbing to Jack Swagger. So, good. I liked it. Vince McMahon and Paul Heyman next week. I'm wondering what they're doing. What are they doing next week? Why are they stacking the show? I hear it's, sweeps week. I didn't hear that. I don't know. I don't know where I got that from, but it seems like they're stacking it because Brock Lesnar is going to be on the next show, and you got Punk and Cena next week. So they're clearly trying to make Raw feel important again, which I'm completely on board with because I love when they announce matches in advance. I love when they push stuff. Oh, next week this is going to happen. The WWE is about something again. It's important. There's something on the line. There's something at risk. Will John Cena face The Rock at WrestleMania? So next week's show is important, so tune into that. WWE Raw USA Network. Match number 6 was indeed the 6-man. Great, fantastic match. And one thing, I like about Raw, ever since that it's gone 3 hours, is that there's been opportunity for longer matches. And even though I DVR Hulu, TiVo, PVR through it, these are the matches I watch. I skip certain segments and I leave time for matches like this to be seen. And I have to say, they're really doing a great job protecting Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, otherwise known as The Shield. Because I gotta say, Nexus could have went longer than it did. And the fact that it didn't, they're like, wow, we need to make the Shield completely opposite to what the Nexus was, which was a bunch of young guys coming in and booked really strong at first, and then they all just jobbed to Cena. It was kind of a glorified version of the Spirit Squad, except instead of Cena, it was DX. So I feel that Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, The Shield, have a great upside. And I commend the WWE for really, booking them as strong as they've been booked. I'm really happy about that. And, I was rooting for them strong at Elimination Chamber. Even though I thought the heroes were going to prevail, I was very happy that The Shield was booked to win. And I like that their finishes, they don't have kind of a finisher. They just they have a spear from Roman Reigns, and then Rollins was the one to drop down for the cover. I like the finish of this match on Raw with the kick out of nowhere. Really liking the Shield right now. Kane versus Randy Orton. Obviously, this is a setup for Daniel Bryan and Kane at WrestleMania, and I have no issues with that. I mean, sure, if you ask me from a wrestling fan point of view, do I really want to see Daniel Bryan versus Kane? Not particularly, because Kane's a great wrestler. Love Kane to death, but I'd rather see Daniel Bryan take on Antonio Cesaro and Miz and Kane just be left off the pay-per-view. But they've been building to this all year, this Team Hell No thing is like Rock versus Cena for a year, except for the tag team division. This was coming. We could see this coming ahead. But, it's time for Kane and Daniel Bryan to end their relationship. And, the place to do that is on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. The really big thing that came out of the Rock celebration segment was the new WWE Championship. Now, this is where I really want your opinion. I want to know what you think about the new WWE Championship. I'm mixed on it. It's certainly better than the Spinner Championship. But to me, it kind of looks like almost like the old WCW United States Championship. It looks like the U.S. title. What do you guys think of the new championship? I am professional wrestling fan Clyde Robbins. They call me Classic Clyde Robbins. And by they, I mean my friend Roger. I like to call this show the Post-Raw Podcast. New episodes every Tuesday following Raw. I'll cover a little bit of SmackDown, main event, even the pay-per-view as I did today. But the focus will be on the Raw telecast. Now, if you want to share this video, podcast, whatever you want to call it, audio, share it with everybody. And by everybody, I mean single out the professional wrestling fan community because I want them. I want comments from them. If you do want to subscribe, youtube.com/postraw podcast. If you're looking for dirt sheets to look up news, rumors, discussions, answered questions, head over to pwinsider.com. Head over to nodq.com. Head over to bleacherreport.com/pro-wrestling. And of course, subscribe to this channel for all your news. Post-Raw Podcast. YouTube.com/Post-Raw Podcast. Now, of course, this podcast is kind of like Art of Wrestling, but not really, because I don't have anybody to interview. I talk to myself. This whole video thing, this podcast thing, it's not supported by anything. We're not sponsored. I wish we were. It'd be a lot better. But, I'm just a dude in my apartment recording this and just talking about professional wrestling because, I like to talk. And I like wrestling, so I like to talk about wrestling if you combine those two things that I like to do. YouTube.com/Post-Raw Podcast. I'd like you to subscribe. I'd like you to like this video. I'd like you to share it with everybody in the professional wrestling community. Until next time, I'd like to say goodbye!